Hello, everyone, and welcome to the distribution maintainers meeting. Today is April 27th, and I guess we can jump right in. I have the first couple items on the agenda. The first item, so these are mostly just reiterations. I went through Slack, the maintainers Slack channel, distribution maintainers, and just reposted things from the channel. So these are just repostings from there. So one was that the Jihu builds are now being done by the Jihu team. So we no longer need to be running releases for their packages from our dev instance. This was a heads up specifically for Balu because Balu had been also assisting with these releases. But I figured to throw it in here to cement in the messaging from the Slack channel as well for everyone. And then the next one is not specifically one for me, but it is a topic that was in the Slack channel as well. This is one that Jason brought up that I have a bit of an update on from the leads meeting yesterday. So this is an epic that Jason created around replacing ERB, or in some cases replacing the requirement for Ruby entirely in some of our CNG containers with Gomplate. I think there's supposed to be a T in there. But I just wanted to give an update on this as well. So this was posted in Slack, but the update here is that we are now scheduling some of these issues from this epic over the next couple of releases. So we'll be getting started on that. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions about that.
Not just to say that there are a couple of issues that have been scheduled for 13.12 that you said, in the coming releases, but starting now, I guess, is the
true. Yeah, in the coming releases, starting a couple days ago.
Cool. Yeah, I think Gauntlet is how Jason pronounces it.
Yeah, it's a play on Go template, so they just took T off Go template, so Gauntlet.
The next thing I have on here, this was one posted in Slack yesterday. This is another reminder here in this document, and I'll throw another reminder in our regular team meeting agenda for Monday. But the GitLab chart repo, as of yesterday, is also now using commit-based change logs. And along with this, I already mentioned this in Slack, but the Rails project is also trialing it. In the Rails upstream Rails project, they're not enforcing it until next release. But at the moment, in both the charts repo, our GitLab charts repo, and in Omnibus, we are enforcing and using only the changelog approach.
We need to update the documentation for the charts just to make sure that everybody in the community is fully aware. But otherwise, we may be telling a few people to stop using the script, please.
Yep. And then next is maintainer discussion issues. I checked this last night. A new one from the past 2 weeks was this explore log message regarding update in CR hash. And it was labeled up as a maintainer's discussion. I'm not sure if there was anything you wanted to bring up here, Jason. If so, go ahead. We'll give you a minute.
Sorry, I had to wait for the extremely heavy truck to finish pulling through the light before you guys all just got all that noise instead. The basic gist is here, we need to make sure that our messaging is clear. The question comes down to how much do we want in terms of non-debug logging? So at what level do we want how much information, and just making sure that we're clear on where it's coming from, what it actually affects. One thing that I would point out, we probably want to try to make sure that we directly support JSON logging, structured logging, because in the end, infrastructure will come to ask us for that, or a methodology for that. Otherwise, this is just something to make sure that we're all aware of when we're doing the maintenance of this project, is that we need to have clear logs. If we're going to commit them, then we need to make sure that what we commit is useful.
So Jason, is this issue? I see there's a quote in there. Is this issue around, like, based around that quote? Is this issue kind of more generic, just about like expanding the amount of logs and like where we're logging in the operator?
So this issue is specifically because of a discussion that was spawned in another MR. What I'm raising here is, yeah, we need to fix this problem because it's not really clear exactly what's coming here or what value is in the log messages. I'm also just taking the opportunity to let everybody know, like, we need to think about this long term, is as we add more functionality, as we add more reasons to emit a log for some reason, we need to make sure they're clear and useful.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't have anything to add on this issue specifically. I'm not sure, Jason, if you were waiting to get feedback from Jose or some of the other team that's been more involved with the operator so far, or if you wanted to just throw it on for scheduling.
We'll probably throw it in some amount of scheduling here shortly. The issue really does need transformed into something more expansive, to be clear. I will point out that, yes, indeed, I was waiting for more input from the team that's been involved, but I haven't seen any yet. I plan to sync with the team later in the week and see where we are, what's our next steps from that perspective, and where to get moving on the GA.
Sounds good. So yeah, in terms of old maintainer discussion issues, I have one on here. There's obviously more than one. There's about 10. So please, everyone, feel free, not during the meeting, but asynchronously, to keep checking in on maintainer discussion issues and leaving your feedback. I did pull in one old one here that I wanted to discuss, just because I figured we could start moving it or move the discussion forward a little bit again. This is one from a couple months back from Stan. This is the idea of renaming the task runner to avoid confusion with CI runner. I just wanted to bring it up to everyone's attention. We did have a little discussion around naming and had kind of, my latest comment in the issue is basically reiterating kind of the two names that seemed like people were acceptable with. So what I'm looking for at this point is just for people to weigh in again on the naming. And then so that's something I kind of ask of everyone after this meeting. Take a second to jump into that issue, throw a comment or a reaction in to indicate your preference. But separate from that, I wanted to discuss the timing for when to do this, to when to do the rename here in this meeting. So I know, Jason, in a comment you had mentioned that we should, provide some heads up to the community a couple of releases beforehand. I think that sounds good as well. We're kind of a little late for this major release, and so I guess the next thing I want to discuss is whether we think this has to be done in a major release.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be done in a major release. We can do that in a minor without too much of an issue. I would like to have it done in a major release, but it doesn't have to be.
The one, yeah, and this may not be a problem though. The one concern I have with doing it in a major release is that we actually, like, during the major release, we actually use the task runner pod for the database, like in this major release particularly, where we'll be changing to Postgres 12. We actually, the migration scripts or the upgrade scripts actually use the task runner pod, versus most updates don't. But that's really my only concern there.
Yep, and that's really the valid one. Is as much as I would love to have it on the major version release, we should have announced it in 13.11 if that were the case. And two, as you pointed out, we have before you upgrade, run in Task Runner. After you upgrade, run in Toolbox. Like,
yeah, I wonder if our 14.1 release might be a better candidate for doing this.
I wonder if it might make more sense to announce it in 13.12 and then do it in 14.2. I mean, that seems like we're stretching it out, but remember, we have people that have modifications and existing patterns, and we need to disseminate this to our customers and our own professional services and our support. So we need a little bit of runway. Now, that being said, there's no reason that we can't rename the container earlier than actually renaming the chart. We just can't like change the name of the running pod people to connect into until we get the documentation and the warning of the trading in play. Also, let me point out, Paolo's very on point. Let's not use a dash. For those not familiar, by the way, any property that's hidden underneath a key that happens to include a dash does not work with a straight up property lookup. You actually have to do an index on the key set to pull the one with the dash and then go look up the thing under it, which is an utter pain.
That's an excellent point. And just to point out, that doesn't impact the GitLab prefix, but in the examples in the issue, we have task hyphen console. Like that's the one that's impacted by that. But yeah, that's a good point. The GitLab in front of it is the release name, which ends up in the pod naming, but it's not in the, well, it ends up being an earlier key in the
right. It wouldn't be in the property you actually have to pull.
Yeah.
Like some people go, why did you rename cert manager? Because we got really tired of cert dash manager, index, global values, cert manager, because using index a billion times to start the charts because somebody inserted a dash in their name is a pain.
Did anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up about the renaming the task runner? If not, were there any other maintainer discussion issues or topics anyone wanted to jump into before we jump into the MR list? There's only one in the MR list right now, but if not, we can jump into the MR list. So the MR list was more like at this point, it's more MRs that were also referenced in the Slack channel. And so the first one in here under Helm charts is one we already discussed. And this is the change from York to move to the commit style changelog. This adds a config file to the charts repo for that, as well as updates the danger config to report on it. And that's it for what I saw over in charts. Someone else added one under the operator for Nginx.
Yeah, that was me typing in while you talked. We have gotten everything working in the CI for the operator at this point. In order to do so, we're still using the Nginx operator and we're still using the cert manager operator, although actually we're not using cert manager operator. We had to deploy the Helm chart so that we could set the right configuration so that we could get it to actually work with DNS. What we're doing is we're installing the same Nginx operator into the cluster and then just reusing the Nginx. This actually works flawlessly because with the findings that we had from last week to fix up the ingress class, our ingresses are now properly being handled exclusively by Nginx and routes are not interfering. So we have a pretty much out of the box expectation, as long as we keep the version of Nginx in the CI up to date with the version of Nginx that we're recommending through our setup scripts, then we're at the same page.
Okay, I think that's everything on the agenda. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to discuss? If not, I think that's the maintainers meeting for today. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Everybody.